Well, good morning, Joseph. Let's welcome Joseph to the Henry Swarey Podcast show. Hey, Joseph, what do you got going on in your life, and what's new? What are you inventing, or what are you doing? Tell a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, man. So thanks for having me. It's great to be on the podcast. I've seen you on Facebook for a little while, and I've been curious about what all you've got going on as well. So I'm sure we can talk about that too.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Well, I'm in the roofing space, and I do some coaching, and have interesting little airplane. But when I see you in business, I see you're doing websites, and you're doing some marketing. Like what is like your main thing that you do?
Yeah, so I out of school, I went to work for a roofing company. We did a lot of shingle roof, and we also did spray foam. And one of the early clients that I had was I was working for them, and I noticed that it was always getting the jobs. That was always the conversation, was getting more and more jobs. And so that piqued my interest into marketing. And long story short, I took a marketing course and started learning what we call SEO, search engine optimization now. And it was really impactful to me how there's always somebody that's really, really good at something. And some people are really, really good at doing nothing but getting work. And I'm like, if these business owners had that and they had that person in their lives that was really good at getting jobs, that would just be an incredible impact for them. And so that's what I looked into, and that's how I got started on that course, like I said, and applied it to the company that I worked with and applied it to the company I worked for, and it did really, really well for them. And that's how I got into marketing, and that was in 2015, so coming on 10 years. And that's the main gist of what I do is in the marketing space, getting more jobs for people.
So you're on your own, right? I mean, you have your own company, and you
Yep.
mar you market for other people, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we work with about 80 companies in the US and Canada,
80 companies. Wow.
80 companies in the US and Canada, and we work with them on their Google ads, Facebook ads. And it's interesting because a lot of companies, some guys, a business doesn't often grow at the perfect of the speed that the owner is capable of handling mentally. A lot of times the business is either growing faster or it's growing much, much slower, and the owner wants to go faster and faster. And that's where marketing really comes in. But other times the business owner will develop at the same speed as organic growth happens, which oftentimes is I mean, everybody's growing at different speeds mentally to challenge, the challenges that come up in business. You're growing your capacity. But otherwise, you're just at the whim of referrals. You're just at the whim of seasonality changes. You're at the whim of your reputation, instead of putting that in control of a marketing direction that you can grow as quick as you want, really.
Yeah, so I hear like two things. So you said ads, but then you said organic growth. I mean, what does organic growth mean if that isn't referrals, if that isn't just me being in business for 3 years or four or 10? Like, do you have a different organic growth that you were talking about?
Yeah, organic growth is coming from, there's a couple things online that you're in control of. You're in control of your rankings, where you're showing up when somebody searches. For example, owning a spray foam business, for me, I'm always looking for showing up as a spray foam contractor. So when someone searches spray foam installation Greenville, I want to make sure that we're ranking number one for that search, or if not number one in the top three. The other one that we have control over is reviews. So we have control over how many reviews that we have. We have control over how many reviews that people see. And those are two things that are huge drivers in action. Those are huge drivers to business so that people can, like I said, when they make the search, they can make that judgment call on, hey, should I actually work with this person based on the reviews? So you can be ranking number one, but if your reviews aren't that great, you're not going to really get any traction that way either.
Right. Okay. Now, the other thing that I was just kind of thinking as you're talking, so we're organic growth, which I came to the thought of business owners, as a business owner, so my company can grow organically or I can market it. But let's say whatever I'm doing, it's the need for what I'm doing is amazing and it's just taking
Mhm.
off like crazy. Can it outgrow the company so that, and people call it growing pains. I guess what I'm leading to is like maybe can we outgrow the speed of the growth of the leader, the growth of the team? Maybe you don't have the right people in your company. Like, can a company grow too fast? Can you speak into that? Like, what does that
Oh
look like?
man, I've seen that firsthand multiple occasions where the company is outgrowing, and many times from my perspective, it is who they did put it that the owner did put the one or two people in place that are right, and they're really feeling that growth, but the emotional maturity of the owner is lagging behind the growth of the business. And that's a predicament that leads to, usually the symptoms of that are really poor quality of work. That's usually what it comes down to, it seems like. um, but I've seen that multiple times where the business is growing much faster than the business owner. Have you seen that as well?
Yeah, I think so. And I was thinking, too, how about the character? Because you know what happens when a young person gets a lot of money, they tend to spend it right away. You want that first truck, that first car, and they get emotional about. Here's what I've seen in a business, other companies, entrepreneurs, they want that nice truck, and it's, they can't have that image of driving around with a regular truck. So they want a jacked up
Hmm.
truck, and they want big wide tires. Then they show up to the homeowner that way, and it really doesn't impress the homeowners, does it?
Not really, not really. Yeah, it doesn't. It
Right.
feels good in the moment, but until you get really good, I had to get really good at reading cash flow statements because I learned very quickly that yeah, you want to spend you've got the money come in and you want to spend oftentimes the initial hump of, hey, we've got some money coming in now, we can look good. But a lot of times the cash flow statement doesn't support that. And so you get into a situation where once again your financial acuity is immature and you've got a business that's outgrowing your financial acuity.
That reminds me of something. I think the financial acuity that you're talking about is probably one of the most challenging thing an entrepreneur has to face, because usually the entrepreneur going into business, he's good at that one thing, and it could be marketing, but typically it's
Hmm.
good in whatever he's doing, getting the job done, but he's not good in hiring,
Hmm.
retaining, rewarding, firing. He's not good in the financials or marketing, typically not good in marketing, and sometimes a little bit, but knowing the financial statement is huge. Now, how do you teach someone to read a financial statement, and what's one thing they should look for in the very beginning? Let's say someone today is watching this and they're like, man, but I've been in business for a couple of years, let's say, and I'm just struggling financially. How does understanding a financial statement even help me?
Man, that's a great question. I came across a book called Profit First. I don't know if you're familiar with that or not, but it's a book
No.
that it's by Mike Michalowicz, and it oftentimes is when I was getting into an issue is when I was felt like I was making more and more money, and yet I was taking home I lifestyle creep, was spending, like you said, you start spending money on the vehicles, and it was very quickly evident to me that even though I was making more and more money, it was the spending was creeping up with it, and I found out that there's a way to force yourself. It's kind of like the analogy of a small plate. So if you have a small plate, you can only load so much food onto it. And it's like making your bank account the same way, making your bank account so that every dollar comes in, you know that 40% of it's going into overhead, 40% of it is going into maybe day-to-day operations, cost of goods sold, and then you have another 20% that you're supposed to be taking for your own pay and your own profits. And that's the profit first model that I adopted. Was is really just taking that principle right there of almost like an envelope system. It's if you're putting everything into one bucket or one envelope, you're just going to be dipping into it, and it just looks like there's a lot there, but there's really not. And so you got to space that out. You got to space that out into individual envelopes, and that was my first early adoption into learning how to read a financial statement, was just seeing that the dashboard right there of the having the different bank accounts that we'd separate that each dollar into. So we have $1,000 come in, 400 go here, 400 go there, 200 go here, 200 go there, and it would put a really good uh, damper on rampant spending in the beginning.
Right. So it sounds like budgeting almost. I mean, a lot of entrepreneurs also, people have a hard time with a budget and setting up a budget. I mean, how's that been for
Mm.
you? I mean, it probably was been easy for you. You're probably more financial literate than some or what?
It has not been easy. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. It's a forced budgeting. It's a forced budgeting way of a system of doing it. Because budgeting is oftentimes you're looking back. With the method that I adopted is it's looking forward. So we're actually forcing like, hey, we can't spend any more money out of the OpEx, the operating expense account, because there's no money left. Like there's no money. It's budgeting. Many times you're looking back at the last 30 days, you're looking back at the last quarter. And so I had to get, I still wouldn't say I'm really good at budgeting. It's really, really tough. Even personally, I use a budget, and just setting up those reminders in my calendar to go through. And since I've got three businesses, I've got three reminders in my calendar. Hey, it's time to do my budget for my rental properties, or it's time to do my budget for my personal stuff, or many times I've got a phenomenal accountant that's really, really doing a great job with us on our projections with the marketing agency side. But you have to set reminders. That would be my tip: is have reminders, have events scheduled during the day where you sit down and you do your budget at certain times throughout the month, bi-weekly if possible.
Exactly. Um, so throughout my growth here, also, if I may speak a little bit about what I've been through, is a person here, as I was discussing budget, I said, it's time that we do the budget, and we need, as we're growing, I need to grow this budget thing, and we need to train you into help me with the budget. And that person said, well, how can you have a budget if if you don't have hundreds and thousands of dollars sitting in the account? I says, no, that's
Mm-hmm.
not the point. The budget is when the money comes in, it's going to go over here. It's going to
Mm-hmm.
go over there. Doesn't matter if I have a dollar, if I'm broke. I mean, the reason people are broke, I think, is because they don't know where their money is going. Or, I mean, I don't mean broke as far as not having any money. That's not really broke. Because people tend to invest their money. They want the accounts clean. They don't want any money sitting around. That's Each person has their own way of handling money. Um, but it just told me it was the wrong person, because each person doesn't think that way. As far as budgeting, but we now have a coach, and as you mentioned, um, looking into the budget is huge, and for me, it's been huge. And I think if every entrepreneur was to see where their money is going a couple times a month, maybe at least every other week, or at least twice a month, that would help them to see where they're going and not wait until income tax time, right? So many people do it once a year and they're like, oh man, I made money. Or the accountant tells them, no, you lost $40,000. And they said, this is for real. I heard somebody say that. And he said, how could it be? I still have $70,000 in my account. And the accountant said, well, those are down payments for the next job that you're doing. You're going backwards, man.
Mm-hmm. It's so true. That's so true. So when did you sit down and look at your budget and decide, hey, I can afford to get a Lancer?
Well, that was not in the budget. That was in my idea. So I said, I'm going to do whatever it takes. And that was early on in my roofing career. Since we moved to Ohio, well, it's over it was in 2018 when I started up my new company here as Panda Roof.
Mhm.
And I needed a little bit more inspiration from where I had just left. And I always loved flying. And after I had taken my first jet ride to Florida, I was like hooked. I'm like, man, I'm doing this. And
Awesome.
I wrote down some ideas. I started following a couple mentors, a couple of people that were mentoring others, and into the thinking into results kind of idea. And they were like, you gotta write down what you want, put a date on it. That's going to be your goal. So I wrote down, I want a plane, I want an RV, I want a cabin. I don't have the cabin yet. And so the RV I achieved that within 5 or 6 months. It was just a matter of making up my mind, really.
Wow.
And the plane I had like within 1 year, like within a year and 1 month, I had the plane.
Wow.
Just made a decision. And I think so many people, entrepreneurs, get stuck. and unable to make a decision. So they go
Mhm.
back to this teeter-totter thing. They just think about it. They're really wishing they could, but they don't really step into the believing that it's for them.
Right. They're not truly committed mentally to it.
How has that been for you with your company? You mentioned a little bit about spray foam. How has that been for you to step in and starting up a new company like that? And was this your first company that you started besides the SEO marketing?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the spray foam, that was the second one. Man, that was a you kind of tapped into a little bit of the beginning of it. So in the beginning, I put a picture of I had a vision board. I'm sure you're familiar with the vision boards, and I on the vision board I had a Tesla, I had a car, or like the Tesla car. That was what I wanted at the time, and this was when I think my business was probably I was probably doing maybe 20,000 a month back then, like just getting started. And so it was these were, crazy aspirations to me, but I had that and I had a custom home on there that I wanted to build a tiny home out of cash. And I had a few other things that were all some of them more personal, but had a few other things on that vision board. And the house, it was within a year and a half of putting that vision board as my screen on my computer. I put it on my phone, had all these this vision board in front of me as many times as possible. That we actually were able to build the house out of cash. Um, it was within a year and a half. So as well as building a house, I knew I wanted to have spray foam in it. And um, me and Sam had talked a lot about doing something together, and it was the spray foam thing. I just sent him a text, said, "Hey, do you want to start a spray foam company? I can't find anybody to do my spray foam." And I think he replied is I forget exactly what he said, but basically he was like, "Heck yeah, let's do it." And it was just that quick. It was off to the races. I had done some market research, and I knew that there was, just from me trying to find somebody to hire at the time, there was just not very many people that were doing it in our area. And it was hard as it was to get a quote right around COVID. I knew that there was going to be some really, really big building booms coming up. And so that was how we got started. I mean, it was really as simple as that. It was as simple as that.
What do you think your biggest challenge was in starting that company, though? Now, if you look at it, if you look back, you all will have strength in different areas. What do you think was the part that you were lacking that you see now?
Oh, definitely lacking building a team and staying on top of the culture of that team and staying on top of the building a team that you mentioned the reward system, having a good reward, so having a good company culture. That was something that was a challenge to me because I had team members at that time, but we were all remote and we would meet at different times during the week. I had never managed a team that we could go meet in person, we could go play golf, we could go to Top Golf, or we could meet for lunch on Fridays. That was all new to me. And so having a good organizational structure was a challenge for me, for sure, for sure. How's that been for you?
Yeah, no, it has been a challenge, and it just we we grow through it as we come to it, and some people they want to come to it before they grow to it. All right. It's just like saying, well, you know what? In 2 years, I will need this pickup. I will need a 1 ton. So why would I buy a half ton now? And I hear
Hmm.
people say, well, you know what? When my children grow up and they have to go to this church or whatever, I will feel whatever. And yet they don't have any children yet. So maybe that's a step too far, right? And so I think where people lack is they don't take the first step. And so they procrastinate. So what you did, you took a step and then you could adapt, right, as you moved forward. And so hiring employees is just something that it's been one of the biggest struggles for all entrepreneurs, I believe. And until they get that figured out, they're unable to grow their company. Delegation is huge, right? You got to be able to
Hmm.
delegate. And one of the things I found out was writing up a standard operating procedure called SOPs.
Yep.
How
Yep.
has that been for you? Like writing down the standards, like this is what I want to see.
Yeah. It's that was something I got into really early on just because work with remote employees,
Okay.
we weren't able to train in person. So I was writing SOPs from almost day one. I remember once I figured out what an SOP was, I was blown away. I was like, man, this is the greatest thing. Why, well, how come nobody did this when I started on the roofing crew or when I started doing when I was doing how come we didn't have SOPs for that? That would have been so much easier for training. And so I've got, oh boy, hundreds of SOPs, and we've got a playbook that has I followed the are you familiar with the book Traction?
I
It's
am. Yeah, love that
yeah.
book. But Gino
Oh
Wickham,
man.
yeah,
Yeah, Gino
everybody,
Wickham.
we should almost hide that book, but no, everybody should read it. Every entrepreneur needs to read that book.
Oh man, that was one of the greatest, but I think it's second only to the E-Myth Revisited. That was one of the really, really good ones that I read as well. But Traction, I went through and followed every step in the process we went through. We built our playbook, we put our core values in there, mission statement, got all that figured out for the company. And my marketing agency, it did really, really well for us, did really, really well for us. And we still use it to this day. We don't have the level 10 meetings. I want to make sure that we do have that, but it's, it's sticking to those things, being consistent with it, and being um, determined to make it happen. That's really been it's really that's really the challenge I think for every company in building that infrastructure in your company. It's tough. It's not easy. It takes a lot of dedication.
It does. A lot of persistence, right? You have to have a burning desire, as Dale Carnegie said, and Andrew Carnegie
Hmm.
said. Is that his book, Andrew Carnegie? Dale Carnegie. He said you got to have a burning desire backed by persistence
Yes.
to burn through this life. Like you have to really, really want it. The same with my airplane, the Lancer that I got, right? So, um, like to justify that expense is like, get out of here. Like it's a lot of money. And some people won't even do it. They say, oh yeah, I've always wanted, an airplane, but really, I don't know if I'll get to it. I mean, I had such a burning desire. I had to have it. And there was
Yeah.
times I wanted to quit. And I think it's the same way in business. Like you feel like quitting at times because it's so frustrating, or it can be. But usually the frustration happens when you continuously do the same things over and over again, and you don't seem to get out of it. I think that can be
Hmm.
frustrating. So I think until a person is able to sit down and reflect, and I think that's why people need a coach, because we all go so far in life and we are all blinded by our own success. We can't see the opportunities sometimes.
Hmm. Have
How
you
do
ever lost that burning desire for, have you ever had a time that you felt like, hey, I don't have everything's going good, everything's rolling, things are starting to turn into a little more monotonous, just day-to-day operations. Have you ever felt like you had a loss of that burning desire?
Yeah, I probably have had in the past, but when I catch myself in there, I know what's happening is, if you let it get stale, like you don't have a big enough dream, like you got to have a big enough goal or dream that it scares you, that you don't even know how you can achieve it. So once you get close to that, you get your first plane, you got to have something else beyond that that motivates you to continue on. Because I believe as humans, how we are created to be co-creators with God, meaning we need to be creating something in our life. And if we aren't using our gifts, our talents that we were called to use, I think we're going to get burned out. And burnout, I believe, is a definition of doing something that we weren't called to do, or the monotony of something. It can get, sometimes we have to do things to get the job done, but you need to delegate it if it isn't your strength. If you
So
stay in
true.
your strength zone, you won't get burned out. You will be inspired and you will
Hmm.
keep going. It's not work. People say, well, how can you make $1 million? How can you make $1 billion? And why don't these guys quit? It's that very one thing that they love to do and they have become so good at it. Why would they quit?
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah,
If you're
that's
not
so true.
if you're not doing that thing, if you haven't found that thing, you probably need a coach. You probably need somebody to help you. If you don't, if your dad, your mom, your uncle, whoever's in your life isn't able to help you, then you need to find somebody to help you find that direction.
Yeah.
Going back to the SOPs, if you would, for a minute. Um, Now that you said you have been doing that, so my question is, how have you wrote out the KPIs and the metrics for those SOPs, if you know what I mean?
Hmm. How if I wrote them out for the like the definition of done?
Yeah, so how have you wrote out the KPIs, key performance indicators,
Hmm.
the metrics, like the three things that are most important in that in that position, let's say for call taking, like answer the call within the 5 minutes that something comes in from the
Hmm.
online form. How are you going to track this and how are you going to measure that? Like because when we do the SOPs, we also have to delegate it to somebody, but then we have to hold
Right.
them accountable, which is the key performance indicator. Like, can you just tell me a little bit how you've done that?
Yeah, yeah, that's something that I know there's always improvement in. And we have, so I'm just thinking of the SOP right now for answering calls. And that is, there's parameters of how soon, what to say, who to delegate to in in that SOP. And then we were having weekly meetings actually of the KPIs. But we lagged off for a couple of months. And so we're going to get back on. But um, getting back on with that and having those KPIs in the meetings are super helpful to review, and it keeps you accountable big time when for sure when the rest of the team can see them.
Yeah, because what I found is everybody thinks they're doing so great, they're doing so well in their own mind, but
Yeah.
that's just in their mind, right? How many calls are going to the wayside? How many are you losing? How many are you not even setting appointments? Or, do you get the objections? Or why do I have to be home? I don't know your standard for going out for estimates. Um, but if you don't measure that, you can't show them how good they're actually doing. And quite often,
Exactly.
salespeople think they're doing much better than they actually are. And when they get into a slump, it seems like a lot of people get into a slump of sales, and there's reasons for that. Then they need to see the numbers. And it was for me when I went in school, I thought I was just like C all the way through, like 70s. But when I go to my report card, I'm surprised at how many in the upper 80s and lower 90s I had. And I'm not sure where I get that mindset from, but I think it was from what the people told me. Oh, you're a slow learner. Okay, your numbers aren't great. I know my passing score was 70. So for some of the subjects that I didn't understand, I didn't care. I could have cared less if I didn't even hit anything over 70 because I knew I would pass the grade anyway.
Hmm. Is
Right.
it Brian Tracy? He says what gets measured gets improved, or gets
Ah,
done.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's very, very true.
So on
Yeah.
that subject of measuring, doing your KPIs, um, how have how have you seen that like on your team when they do see the numbers? How has that like motivated them to even become better, if any?
Yeah, it's oh man, yeah, it has. I'm thinking of a different situation here. But
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't want to get too specific on it because there's still work for me, but we had several team members that there was a certain there was they were struggling in a certain aspect of their performance, and it wasn't being measured. And once it started getting measured, it was I want to say it improved close to almost 40% performance wise, um, day over day, week over week, just from it being, and it was an email that would go out, and everybody would get the email, and it improved. It was close to 40% improvement on that particular metric, just
Wow.
simply from it being not only not like it was a public shaming system, but it was just here's what everybody's doing, here's what everybody's numbers look like. And yeah, we had particularly it was just a tremendous improvement just from those simple KPIs right there.
That's amazing. And that's so amazing. And I think it goes back to what we were talking just a while ago about budgeting, personal
Yeah.
budget, in your business budget or whatever. Once you see the dashboard, if everybody had a dashboard in their life in front of them, their financial dashboard, they would make different decisions. And that's as a business owner, why we need to have that dashboard set up for us. So it releases us of all those obligations of trying to get those numbers together because that's our strength. Come on now, as a business owner, why are we doing this thing of having a business in the first place, right? And one, a lot of business, most business owners, a lot of them, okay, are visionaries. They have all these
Hmm.
ideas, and that's me, for instance. I get all these ideas, but I need someone behind me to fix them ideas into something that's going to work. And as we
Hmm.
go, continue on with our ads, for instance, that you could relate to this, what ad is working, what is not working. I'll have all these ideas. You get an ad going out, I see somebody else's. I go, oh my goodness, we should try this. We should try that. I don't know where they come from, but we need to get it working. Like, don't wait so long. Don't wait. Don't say, yeah, we'll try that next month, right?
Hmm.
I
Do
mean,
you have a
sometimes we
great
have to.
integrator?
What's that?
Do you have a good integrator in your business? As you as the visionary, you have your visionary and then your integrator, correct?
Yeah, but that's not probably as I would like it as of right now. That's the way I'm working. That's where I see myself in the future of my company, as we will have franchises or we will have locations of Pan the Roof, and I
Mm.
have many great ideas. There will be acquisitions. They will buying out other companies. But I need someone to come around behind me. I need a service manager that provides the service to all of these areas. And in my company right now, we have a project manager or supervisor, right? And so he manages all of the details, every aspect of the project from the beginning to the end. I don't do a thing on that part, right? Except
Mm.
maybe just give some advice. And if a problem comes up, we have that discussion. How has that been for you, though?
Yeah, it's been I finally found my integrator, just going from the Gino Wickman book, Traction there. Um, have after about a year ago, actually it would have been a year ago, exactly last July, she came in and she came into my company as an equity partner, and it's been we've over doubled in size since I had the right person coming behind me and sorting things out and sorting the operations out and getting a lot of that off my plate has been phenomenal. We've grown just tremendously. So I'm a huge fan of the visionary, staying in the visionary role and sticking to the idea, sticking to the solutions, and then having somebody behind you that's able to integrate and make everything happen. It's just phenomenal. Couldn't be better. I couldn't be happier with the current arrangement.
Good, good. If there's one thing that changed because of it, what would that one thing be that really changed for you?
The biggest thing was having somebody else that dealt with the things that I didn't like to do. I think you mentioned that earlier. You're supposed to stick in your area of your zone of genius. You're supposed to stick to the areas that you're gifted in. And there was a lot of things that I was doing that I was working on that weren't in my zone of genius. And it was in areas that were more of customer, not customer relations. I love the customer relations side, but it was more of the operations, what I meant to say, operations side, operations that were the day-to-day operations that really drug me down. Those things get her fired up and she really enjoys it.
Right. And I don't know if you've heard of this, breaking down a company in like four departments, which I always like to go over. And one is marketing, right? And
Hmm.
then sales, then we have service, and then we have financial. And so if you see your company like that, you can quickly analyze each department,
Mm.
which is doing well or which is lagging behind, because a lot of companies are not that good in marketing. But if you can market, but you can't sell, then what good is your marketing? But if you can
Right.
sell, but you can't provide the service, you can't deliver the goods, then wow, then you had better look at that department, right? And then the last one, of course, is the financial aspect of the company. Do they have that so much debt that they can't grow? Or are they, for instance, growing like for us roofing companies, if you take on insurance projects, they lag in paying you 2 to 3 weeks out, unlike, the customers that pay us when we're done. We can have hundreds of thousands of dollars uncollected because it just takes so much time, and that has a financial stress in the company, right? So if you look at those four departments, can you speak into one or more that you think is important, or is there anything that you would like to share about what you see?
Yeah. I see, like an employee who starts a business focusing on the service. A lot of people, they just focus on the service and that's what they're focused on.
Ah,
They ignore the finances, they ignore the sales or marketing. The marketing is probably, I would say it's almost the last. It's almost the last that a lot of people focus on. Maybe finances, but The sales and service, those are the two that get the most attention from my experience, what I see. And then the marketing and the finances come last. But I would say from my, if I would look at that and rank myself, I would say I used to be very, very much so. It was service first, marketing second, sales third, and finances last. And it was not, that's not a way to grow a business, not a way to grow a business. Um, yeah, it's been a journey, but I can say now finances are easily my number one right now.
I see. So you talk about marketing. Benjamin Franklin would speak into marketing like this. He said a quote once, to stop paying for marketing is like to stop the clock to save time. He said it this way, to stop paying for marketing is like stopping the clock to save time. How much should one person like invest in marketing, and how do I know I'm going to get that money back? I mean, I'm a small company. Let's say I'm 500,000 or 800,000. I want to grow my company, and I mean,
Hmm.
how much money do I spend? I mean, can I have a calculation? Can you give me an idea? Do you have an idea?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's I get that a lot, and it's really, it goes to percentages. If you can budget 7% of your revenue to marketing, that's solid. 10% is aggressive. 13, 12% is super aggressive.
Wow.
But I know there's people who spend even more than that. The for sure larger companies spend pretty significant numbers, but that's crazy. That's where you're wanting to grow really aggressively. And it's like, okay, well, now that we spend it, are we actually getting that back? Um, my my thing is for sure the home service companies, guys, they think marketing is printing money. Like they think like, oh, I just need to be marketing more and I can be printing more money. I can be getting more work and they think they can just give this to hire a marketing agency and they're going to print money for them. And it's not like that. It's not like that at all. There's so many. If it was that easy, you would every day you would see another $50 million a year roofing company. If it was that easy, that's all it is just marketing. Well, you can hire people to solve the finances. You can hire people to do your fulfillment and your SOPs. But if that's the only thing, then we'd be doing 50 million a year from my spray foam business, because we're really, really good at marketing. But it's not. And a lot of times the end of the day, starting out with the basics is so critical. Yard signs are We can get yard signs for a couple bucks a piece, and we'll have guys come to us who want to do marketing. And yeah, yard signs are a little bit messy, but doing the basics, doing the things that are going to work, are going to get results for. It's just getting those things done first. And I have people come to me all the time they're wanting to, spend 1 to 2 thousand on Google or 1 or 2 thousand on Facebook, and they haven't even spent 400 bucks on yard signs to put those out and to get results there first.
So it almost sounds like we should work on our branding. I mean, does that lead into branding? Because like we should probably start with our organic marketing first, like you said, yard signs. So that's A. How about
Yeah.
clothing? How about uniforms? How about um, put your name on the truck? How about cards and stuff like that?
Oh man,
And
yeah.
how important is image? The image that the logo they use or the words they choose, the business name, like, I mean, how important is that, do you think, in marketing?
Oh, it's massive, massive. And that dictates how much your people are willing to spend, as well as what your presentation look like is going to drastically affect your ability to sell. And if you show up and you're just a plain white t-shirt and you're in blue jeans and you get out of an unmarked vehicle and you're the highest person, a lot of times you're going to lose that just because unless you have a really, really good sales personality, you're going to lose that job just because people aren't trusting you. If you go into I like to always compare to what's worked. I'm not a big fan of reinventing the wheel. And so if you go into like Atlanta, for example, it's a very, very competitive market in the plumbing industry. And you say, who are the most expensive companies? They're actually some of these bigger ones. The bigger companies are some of the most expensive ones. And it's because people trust them. They've got their branding down. They've got their image down. People know they're not going to get just completely ripped off by a huge company, and they'll go with them over a guy that's in a shoddy vehicle, shoddy van gets out and he's in his dirty blue jeans, he's in a stained shirt, and he doesn't look presentable. That's I think you hit the nail on the head with that.
Wow, I was gonna say boom. You know, like some people have these bombs, they bow bomb off when they hit one of those good things that you said. And I think we need to have a bomb right there when you
Yeah,
just said with a white t-shirt, just a white t-shirt, just a regular t-shirt with regular blue jeans. I mean, come on, guys. Like we need to dress up, and that's what I always say to our team. Like we need to dress up one notch above the client. And what about dressing up that looks like a salesperson? And I don't know how you find this, but I've heard salespeople say, well, you know, I don't want to be the sleazy salesperson. I don't want to be salesy. I don't want to be this, and I don't want to be that. And you know, it's some image that they allowed someone to implant or to put in their mind, and they don't want to push back on that idea. And it's a wrong image. It's a
hmm
wrong image of a salesperson, right?
it is. It is, and it's kind of I think it comes from in the old days where they had the book salesman or the vacuum cleaner salesman, or the I guess even this a snake oil salesman who'd stop and they'd knock on the door, they'd harass the family. The family wasn't interested, but they'd keep pushing, keep pushing. And nowadays we don't, I mean, unless you're in cold calling, like if somebody calls and raises their hand and says, "Hey, I'm interested in getting a new roof, or I'm interested in getting a repair done or spray foam, whatever it may be," like that person already gave you permission to pitch them.
Exactly. He says,
And
come
so,
on over. Yeah, come on into my
yep,
house. He says, sit down. Like, why don't we take that as, you know, he's looking for me. He's in pain. He needs help. Even if he gets three bids or whatever, why is he getting three bids? You're the one there. You should be thankful that he invited you in the house, right?
exactly,
So apparently the other guy that was there ahead of you, or he's just lined up a couple of people because he doesn't know who's going to show up. He doesn't know who can deliver the goods that he's looking for. And the moment he finds the guys, I've found it out so many times. Boom, he's going to pull that trigger. He's going to say, that's it. I'm going to go with you. I love you. I like your company. I like what you stand for. I like your image. It's just on and on and on, right?
exactly. Just out of curiosity, do you have sales guys that are doing your sales currently?
Oh yeah, we have three. I just recently hired one, and so we're growing fast enough at our company because I know every time you hire a salesperson, I'm looking at 1 million in sales, you know, the first year, and
Hmm
so 1 million in sales means that's quite a bit more of jobs now that we have to service. So I'm looking at my project manager, how much can he handle until he becomes overloaded? Then I have to hire an assistant for him. So that's how a company grows. That's how a company breaks apart by growing too fast and don't have their people taken care of. But systems and procedures, I think, is key because if people can just guess and just do as they feel like, it's gonna blow it up because it's never the same. You know, as you go into a restaurant and you have a great experience, you bring back your friends and they do this thing, same thing. They say the same words again and again. How
hmm
many today? How many?
hmm
You know, and then they have a way of making you feel welcome and all that.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's going to put you in a position where you can franchise then because you have all your operations and your systems in place already.
Yeah, and then our sales procedure is like the same every single time. It doesn't mean it's gonna drag out the same length of time. Some are 2 hours, some are two and a half, some are three, but some are an hour, some are hour and a half. So it just all depends how much information the homeowners need, and can we shorten it? I don't want to overwhelm them, but I need to give them the information. And as a sales person myself, been in sales for over 20 years, came off a farm. There was no sales, there was farming, and there was
Hmm
horses, there was cows, and you got to convince the cows to come into milk. Well, that's not very salesy. You know, you have to. It's a manager style right there. Get it done, right? But I
Yeah.
learned when I was at a very young age that I don't know everything, and I was willing to learn. And I think for everyone here listening, we have to have the humility to learn, to be open minded, that we don't know everything and that there's more, regardless how much we make. No one person makes the money they make right now, including you and me, only because that's all we wanted. That's
Yep.
only what we know, how we know what to get right now, right?
That's so that's true. And it reminds me of a mental exercise that I did one time. It was completely unprompted. I was actually in Sunday school, and I remember sitting there and just looking at the group of men that were all around us, and all of a sudden realized that everybody in that room at that time was self-employed, just happened to be self-employed. And if you're self-employed, you can make as much money as you want. There's nobody stopping you. There's nobody stopping you. You can grow as big as you want. But this might have been a little bit presumptuous of me, but I kind of could have guessed that everybody, each individual, would have probably averaged maybe between 80 and 150,000 a year, take home. And I was like, wait a minute. Everybody in here is averaging probably about 80 to 150. That means if I added everybody up in here, we're over $2 million right now
Well, that's
of
crazy.
I'm like, everybody sitting in here happens to fall between 80 and 150,000 a month or a year, and yet everybody consolidated effort is over 2 million in this room. So what is stopping one person from taking home 2 million? It's just simply doing the work, doing the accomplishments of doing putting the systems in place that everybody in here is doing at the same time. I don't know if that makes sense, but it was when I realized that I was just all of a sudden it was just like it felt like it became simple suddenly in my mind of like it's simply output is all it is. It's just simply output. There's no trap, or there's just these imaginary ceilings that we all have in our heads when we first start out, that hey, we have to be taking home between 80 and 150,000 a year. That's what I was just presuming. But that was just kind of a funny mental exercise that I did when I was bored in Sunday school one time, and it really opened my eyes to possibility.
Yeah, I think we're all limited to our own imagination, as one guy said, and comprehension. And I believe one of the ways to move forward is to make more mistakes. If we're not making mistakes, we're not learning. Truly, that's how it is. And I believe
Oh yeah.
our mind is so wired that we're half asleep almost, like we're not fully operating at the fullest, widest um, of emotion or awareness. That's what I wanted. We're not operating at our highest level of awareness all the time because our brain wants to shut down unless something happens. We're not fully awake. And so I always try to stimulate my brain to do things. Is there anything that you would do that you want to share with the audience that you do that you stay at the best mental fitness? I mean, you look in good shape, you look young. Um, like, tell me a little bit of what you do.
I take Adderall. That's been something that has massively helped me with distractibility. And it's kind of a joke. It's something to joke about, but it truly does. It truly does. Has been something that's I struggled with in school. I did not do very well in school. I mean, I had good grades, but I got in trouble a lot, was restless, was always getting into things I shouldn't be. And that was something that in my adult life that I realized very, very quickly. Once I went to a psychiatrist, and they told me, yeah, I think you have ADHD, hyperactive. That was something that helped a lot. It really calmed my focus down, helped me focus a lot better, helped me get less, just get distracted less, and overall, not necessarily advocating it for everybody. Of course, it's if you have that condition, it helps you. But that's been my biggest help. Genuinely speaking, I like to talk about it just because it's something that it's what is it? There's stigma around it. There's stigma around mental health. There's for sure for
Uh-huh.
business owners. And I always say that besides marriage, being a business owner is the most mentally, challenge. You got to be on your feet. It's a mentally challenging endeavor, and you've got a lot of emotional challenges in that too. And it's really, really important to stay on top of your mental health.
So what do you do? What's your daily mental exercise that you do, if you do any, or do you do any physical exercise like running or weightlifting, or do you do anything like that for your daily disciplines?
Yeah, I actually do. So it's kind of funny. So I attempted working out multiple occasions where I try to work out, and I don't need to lose any more weight for sure. I did lose a lot of weight, like 20, 30 pounds, but I don't need to lose any more than that. But what I did is I set up a routine where I'm actually play pickleball multiple times a week now. And so every day I'm doing something. I mean, if I'm not going to the gym, I'm playing pickleball. And it's that's something that's been really, really fun. I'll stay consistent with that. I do drink a ton of water. You'll see me drinking multiple times throughout the podcast. I put in some Crystal Light in this one, but drink a ton of water, stay focused that way. Getting up early, you get up early, all the things, all the usual suspects that have really, really helped me.
Yeah. So I want to respect your time here, Joseph. It's been an honor and a pleasure to be with you and to listen to your story and your tidbits of wisdom and gold nuggets that you've learned along the way of life and business. And if there's one thing that you like to share with everyone here, what's that one thing you like to share? Some gold nugget or like something that you would just like get the word out? What would that be?
Man, it's look at your if you're a business owner, look at your numbers, know how much it costs you to acquire a customer, and know how much that customer is worth. Those are three things that have been incredibly life changing for me because, like you said, you wanted to have a plane. You can have all these goals, and there's just so many business owners that I see that are just on a treadmill every month, same money comes in, same money goes out. And without actually knowing your numbers and like you covered on the KPIs, without knowing your KPIs and not knowing your finances and how much it costs to acquire that customer, what that customer is worth, you can just be on a treadmill forever. And that's what nobody wants that. And I hate to see that because I can even think of from a super young age growing up, seeing people who are self-employed and have their own businesses and they were just on this relentless treadmill and they it was like, man, it was painful to see as a kid and even now I still see that and I just hate that. I want nobody to experience that.
And how can you help others? You had mentioned that you do some SEO work and some other work for ads and all that. What is your services that you would offer to our listeners today?
Yeah, absolutely. So we do SEO, search engine optimization. This is coming from, somebody that worked in the field, somebody that owns a business today. So I understand the ins and outs of it. A really common scenario is people hire SEO and then they go 6 months and they're like, "What happened?" They're like, "Is anything going on? I don't notice any change." And that's where you got to stay on top of your numbers and you got to have that SEO company accountable. And so I think working with us, that's the difference is that you're working with a company that's keeping themselves accountable and really brings actual results. I mean, there's really, yeah, I can't speak to enough of the importance of knowing what it costs to get a customer. And if you're doing SEO, it's even more important. You got to know where those customers came from. You got to know which customers came from that SEO campaign. If you don't, you're in a position of you're just throwing money down the drain.
Yeah, I love it. Love it. Thank you very much. And where can people find you at?
They can find me josephgonzalez.co. josephgonzalez.co is my website, or you can just friend me on Facebook as well, Joseph Gonzalez, and I'd be happy to chat.
All right, very good. Well, it's been a pleasure, Joseph, and it's been an honor, and I wish you the best, and I hope to talk again sometime on a podcast. And until next time, y'all have a good one, and thanks for watching. Have a blessed day.